Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. The Tasmania Devils are already the envy of other AFL clubs, smashing membership expectations 24 hours after the launch. More than 100,000 signing up as foundation members, putting them ahead of 11 other teams 4 years before their first game.
Bright and early this morning, Campbelltown was already Devils country. The state wasting no time getting around our newest ambassador.
Dynamic, fearsome, aggressive.
At official launches from Queenstown to St Helens and at live sites, thousands gathered for a front row seat to history.
It's something that's been waiting for years, really, trying to have our own team to support. Absolutely very excited.
You're going to snap up a membership?
Of course, yeah, I'm going to try and get as many people signed up as I can.
The club had hoped for 40,000 foundation members by October, smashing that within hours. They now have more members on board than GWS, Gold Coast and North Melbourne combined. But there are no great surprises with the colours or the Guernsey, sticking with the tried and true.
It's been a long time coming for Tasmania to have a licence, and what better way to pay homage than a traditional Tasmanian jumper.
No surprise either with the name.
Nearly 70% of our survey results came back to say that people wanted us to be the Devils. The Turbo Chook's got a good push, 9%.
But it almost wasn't to be. Negotiations with Warner Brothers were only finalised days ago, both sides agreeing to share use of the Tasmanian Devils name with no money changing hands.
When it got to the point of them understanding that the Tasmanian Devil was actually a real animal, things freed up. They've done the right thing by us and they've done it in the right spirit.
Attention now turns to talent development, music to the ears of those who've gone before.
They've got pathways now, they can see what they want to be essentially, and that wasn't there when I first started.
With plenty of work still to do before 2028.
It's going to be a while before the players come, but we're the team for now.
Nick Kelly, 7 Tasmania News.
Labor wants to pick up plans for a second hospital in Hobart, saying it would ease the burden on the public system. Meanwhile, Michael Ferguson has fronted cameras, taking questions over a police funeral given to an alleged paedophile and what he did upon finding out.
Looking to cut Tasmania's lengthy elective surgery waitlist, Labor wants to revive plans for a hospital in Newtown.
This would be a public facility staffed with public, allied health professionals, nurses, doctors, to take pressure off the Royal Hobart Hospital.
The facility's private backers dropped their plans last year due to cost overruns. Labor's willing to stump up $160 million to buy and build it, and $20 million more a year to run it.
We think this is a really positive announcement and shows that Tasmanians have a real alternative on Saturday to change government and to look at a party that will invest in our health system.
It won't cost $20 million a year to run. It would cost $60 million a year to run 8 theatres and 24 overnight beds.
The Greens have unveiled a 50-point plan to address ambulance ramping, with new staff at the centre of it.
It's also based on the government's own expert reports, recommendations that they have failed to implement over years.
In the wake of last night's AFL team launch, Dean Young's keeping the heat on Rebecca White over the Mac Point Stadium, branded a non-negotiable by AFL CEO Andrew Dillon.
You can't negotiate for the AFL deal. A stadium is part of that deal, and they want to kill off our dream.
The AFL, of course, are going to say what they say, because this far out from election campaign, they can see that there's a real mood for change in Tasmania.
After days of requests, Michael Ferguson fronted media.
We have been transparent, but I add my apology to that of the new police commissioner.
Facing questions over when he knew child sexual abuse allegations had been made against a police officer who was given a funeral, and what he did about it.
Of course I was concerned and also satisfied that not one but 2 investigations into Paul Reynolds' behaviour were underway, which is quite proper.
A police standards investigation gathered evidence for a coronial inquest, which made findings. But some say he should have delved further into how the funeral occurred and how an alleged abuser could climb the ranks.
You would think that Minister would like to know how that has occurred within the department he's responsible for. Has there been a failure of oversight and process?
Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
The Liberals have suffered another defeat on their proposed ramping ban, this time from the Tasmanian Industrial Commission. It's ordered further consultation on the first stage after opposition from nurses and doctors.
This policy is bollocks. You don't fix the problem by forcing patients off ambulance stretchers into an ED department that's not resourced with the capacity to take more patients.
There have been no commitments in terms of additional resources for our members to support their workload, staffing and also managing the safety risks.
After the decision, the Health Minister said the protocol was already in place in the northwest and would begin at the Royal Hobart next week. Guy Barnett backtracked hours later, saying he had been advised the order to delay implementation applied statewide. Tasmania Fire Service members have begun industrial action over what they say is government inaction in transitioning TasFire equipment members into the firefighting industrial agreement. The United Firefighters Union says the government had committed to review the classification structure, so it reflected the work undertaken by TasFire equipment employees. Tasmania Police has released a new report detailing complaints made against the organisation. For a closer look at the data, we're joined by reporter Victoria Eastoe. And Victoria, what does it tell us?
Kim, it breaks down the number and types of complaints levelled at and within the service in 2023. The biggest thing to note, most of them were dismissed. A total of 325 complaints were made by external sources, 9 of those at the most serious level, while 94 complaints were raised internally. Of the 31 Level 2 complaints made against police, all but 1 were either dismissed or found not to be in breach. Of those 9 more serious matters, 1 allegation of making a false or a misleading statement was found to be a breach. And a quarter of assault complaints were referred to the Director of Public Prosecutions, however none were found to be in breach. When it comes to matters raised internally, 15 of 42 Level 2 complaints were a breach, and of more serious complaints there was 1 Level 3 breach for failing to use police resources properly, as well as an internal allegation of rape which wasn't referred to the DPP. Kim.
Okay, thank you very much there, Victoria. Fire service crews have managed to contain a blaze in Acton Park this afternoon after a bushfire watch and act alert was sent out to residents. The fire was travelling in a southeasterly direction from Acton Drive but was brought under control a few hours ago. Residents are advised there may still be smoke visible and some fire activity in the area for some time. Despite some much-needed showers across parts of the state today, Tasmanian farmers are sounding the alarm after a historically dry spring and summer. More drought relief is being welcomed, but Labor has labelled the move a cynical vote grab.
The outlook on Matt Ryan's property is decidedly dry. Conditions making the northwest farmer nervous.
We have experienced extraordinarily dry conditions since the spring this year, and our fodder reserves are quite low.
The lack of rain over spring and summer is the worst it's been in 20 years. January brought some green to the ground, but it wasn't enough.
Wind and sun and a harsh summer have basically burnt that away to nothing.
A collapse in the price of beef compounding the pain.
There are farmers that are walking out of meetings in tears. They are so desperate at the moment.
With the extra cost of feeding livestock beginning to bite, drought relief is being extended statewide.
In terms of a $5,000 grant to support farmers with their livestock, with their fodder.
As well as $2,500 payments for farming families doing it tough.
We've got to remember that the social side for many of the families and the communities is just as big as the financial side.
While Tas Farmers has welcomed the announcement, Labor says more should have been done before the election.
When something as serious as this is affecting people's livelihoods, politics shouldn't come anywhere near it.
Unfortunately, what the government can't do is turn the tap on those clouds in the sky.
Annie Green, 7 Tasmanian News.
Clark Independent Christy Johnston has thrown her support behind extra basketball courts in Hobart's northern suburbs. The Glenorchy Basketball Association says a 3-court facility hosted at Claremont College could solve the court squeeze and support learning.
We just cannot fit any more kids into our club because we're struggling with putting the teams on the court.
It's great for Glenorchy basketball, it frees up courts for them. It's also great for the school because it provides important facilities they can use during the day.
Ms Johnston says if elected, she'll work with the government of the day to deliver it. Labor's pledging around $100 million for roads if it wins the state election. Most of that money would be spent on the Bass Highway, including on maintenance and the first stage of a 10-year action plan.
Make sure we can repair potholes, widen and strengthen our road network, making sure that Tasmanians travelling on our road network aren't dealing with some of the challenges that we see.
There's also millions for heavy vehicle rest areas, and they'll match the Liberals' Live Works training site commitment. Red Cross is celebrating 64 years of delivering Meals on Wheels in Launceston. While the service ensures elderly residents receive a nutritious meal, it also acts as an informal check-in on some of our most vulnerable.
For elderly residents like Beverly Cox of Newstead, preparing a meal is becoming more difficult. But thanks to the Red Cross Delivered Meals program, it frees her and her daughter up to do other things.
It was when I was in hospital in June, I decided to give her a break and have them 5 days a week. Yeah.
No regrets?
No, no regrets.
The service celebrating 6 decades, dishing out about 3 million meals in and around Launceston, delivered by an army of dedicated volunteers. Christine DeWitt is no spring chicken herself. She's clocked up 86 kilometres delivering Meals on Wheels today, but loves her work.
It's a good way of me interacting with other people, me not becoming a hermit myself, as well as helping other people in the community.
Those volunteers met today to mark a major milestone, and as Tasmania's elderly population rises, demand for the service continues to grow.
We're seeing more and more clients coming on board with the service each day. So wanted to put a call out to anyone who is interested in joining as a volunteer.
For many vulnerable residents, Meals on Wheels is the only social interaction they'll have all day. Melinda Ogden, 7 Tasmania News.
Richmond has added a new produce festival to its menu, set to go ahead in autumn. 30 makers of fine wine, cheese and food set to offer the best of the Coal River Valley to thousands of hungry foodies.
Oysters and champagne, just some of the delicacies set to be on show as Richmond plays host to a new festival.
We really felt as an association that there was a gap to highlight the wonderful produce that's available from across the Coal River Valley.
Today's spread just a small section of the cheese, wine, spirits and produce on offer at the Crave Harvest Festival, all made in the Coal River Valley.
It spreads the peak season out a little bit further. We would call it a shoulder season, so it gives us a chance to spread that economic value out of the peak season and towards the winter.
With up to 5,000 people set to pack the streets during the first week of April, encouraging tourists to explore more than the CBD.
Give us the ability to disperse the visitors out of the major cities and into the regions.
The town no stranger to drawing crowds, following a successful bicentennial celebration earlier this year.
This is extremely important, in economic and social terms. It's the gem and the crown of the city of Clarence, and Richmond's the finest colonial village in Australia.
Even though the event hasn't started yet, there are hopes of making it a long-standing tradition.
We'd love to see that this is the first year and that we can build on the success from this year to make it an even bigger and greater event next year.
There are also plans for the Tasman Bridge to be lit orange, signalling the beginning of the event. Ruby Cairns, 7 Tasmania News.
A Togetherness Festival is just one of the elements happening soon to celebrate Harmony Week in Hobart. Thursday is set to be filled with performances, food, music and even a magician.
In Hobart, the different culture that comes all together here actually help build Hobart to the way that it is now.
It coincides with the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and we think that it's really important that we highlight this in our communities.
Hobart Council's promising it will be the most vibrant and inclusive event yet. Two Tasmanian artists are lending their skills to a new mural project designed to inject some colour into Launceston's CBD. The two 10-foot works are hoping to inspire others to pick up their paintbrush, adding their own flair to the city landscape.
The last strokes now complete on Launceston's largest ever street art project.
One of the big signifiers of a modern city these days is having that sort of, that vibrant street art.
This Tasmanian mural artist duo painting the Patterson Street East car park native, drawing inspiration from their own backyards.
This mural represents some of our unique and beautiful species we find in the Cataract Gorge.
Tiger quolls painted really realistically and it's still alive, and the thylacine is almost camouflaged in the background.
Each putting their own brush on the artworks, celebrating the heart of the CBD's uniqueness.
It's a very traditional town with lots of beautiful old architecture, and then it's also got a really contemporary modern vibe.
It's about building that sense of pride, that sense of belonging, that identity for us here in Launceston.
The newest additions to the city landscape already receiving the people's choice.
It's had a really overwhelmingly positive experience with everyone. They're loving it.
Embracing a splash of colour. Victoria Risto, 7 Tasmania News.
If you've been following the Sheffield Shield this season, you won't be shocked to learn Tassie all-rounder Beau Webster has been named the comp's Player of the Season. The Shield's leading run scorer and Tigers' leading wicket taker, he's staying humble but is prepared for a tap on the shoulder from Aussie selectors.
Love to get a chance if it does come along, but first and foremost the Shield Finals, the big part of our year, and obviously the top award for the season for Shield cricketers is that Shield Final.
That final will be played at the Wacker rather than Blunston, the Tigers flying west this afternoon. The Tasmanian men have suffered a semi-final loss at the Under-21 Hockey National Championships this evening, losing control of Western Australia late in the match to go down 4-0. The women's side bowing out of the tournament earlier in the day, going down 3-0, also at the hands of the Western Australians.
Good evening. Hobart, 29 degrees today. Launceston reached 25 and 23 for Devonport and Burnie. And to coin an old phrase, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. And sticky it was today. Bushy Park hit the high of 31, while Campania and Grove reached 30. Strawn 28, King and Flinders Islands both 27, Friendly Beaches 25, Smithton and St Helens 24. The frontal cloud band did move over today, and in the 24 hours to 9 a.m, Mount Barrow recorded a good dump of around 67 millimetres, while between 9 and 4 this afternoon, 17 millimetres the best fall at Fish River, but plenty is dumping down at the moment around the state. And apart from our region, some high cloud is streaming from a low off the Pilbara coast across into South Australia, feeding into the frontal band. Cloud with the ex-cyclone is over the territory. Tomorrow a cold front moves over coastal New South Wales and the Tasman Sea. The high over the Bight extends a ridge over northern Tasmania. Mostly southwesterly winds tomorrow at 15 to 25 knots, but to 30 knots over the southeast with swells to 4 metres. We do have a strong wind warning for waters from Sandy Cape around the state and back up to Low Rocky Point. Hobart a shower or two tomorrow, 10 overnight and just 17 the high. 16 for Geefston, 15 for Bothwell, those southwesterlies taking hold. Launceston partly cloudy and 19, 18 the top for Devonport and Cressy, similar conditions. Burnie tomorrow a top of 16 and partly cloudy. A shower for Strawn, 16 the top and 17 for Curry. The wind's picking up there as well. A shower or two for St Helens, 19 the high and 18 for Swansea. A shower or two for Orford, 17 the maximum. On Thursday, fine, apart from light showers about the west. Another shower in the west on Friday with fine partly cloudy and cooler weather for the rest of the state, and similar conditions flowing into Saturday along with west to southwesterly winds. Sunny and 30 in Perth, cool and partly cloudy in Adelaide, a morning shower and just 18 degrees in Melbourne tomorrow. A windy showery day in Sydney, just a possible shower for Brisbane and showers and storms in Darwin. And still a few showers about, and still humid in Hobart, currently 24 degrees, 20 in Launceston, showery in Devonport and 20. You did say it was a strange day, Kim, yes, and I've got to ask you, how did you handle the humidity today?
Pretty good, but a shock to the system tomorrow by the sounds of it. And that is all your news for now. We'll be back with you later with updates. Thanks for your company. Good night.